information. I believe that will be very critical to us as broadcasters. Audience measurement tools will go down to programs that we should focus on, things that we should really cover or not cover in terms of economics, sports, age, gender, etc. All of those are very, very important to us as broadcasters. So it will guide us basically to focus our strategy in the future, where to focus on, where to put more investment on. So if there is something that I can change in the region, it would be a proper audience measurement tools.
How about you, Mohammed?
Very interesting. If the one thing I want to change, all the channels come off of Arabsat or Nilesat and be on your live. But actually, there are a couple of things that I would love to see in the Middle East. Number one is actually high quality of HD, i.e. high bandwidth. Rather than 6, I would love to see 8 and 12 megabit compared to Europe and America, where the average is 10 meg per channel for HD. The other thing, which is maybe that would be good entrance to the discussion, Nick, is who put that law that TV in the Middle East has to be free? I want to change that law. So that's basically what I would love to see.
I think we'll be coming back to both those themes. Just on the advertising side for a moment, I mean, the first question that we looked at in the agenda was, can MENA advertising rates ever get into step with international rates? And I think clearly audience measurement has a big part to play in that. And I believe, Dr. Riyad, that there's big steps going on in Saudi in terms of audience measurement.
Yes, I think you started that. Really, as if we see the spent advertising per capita in our part of the world, probably we can see that it is one of the lowest in the world. And the obvious reason for that is because advertisers do not trust the data that is being published for the viewership. And therefore, they hesitate to spend more money to spend for advertising. And my colleague, Mr. Mohammed, he touched upon this, the initiatives of people meter or the proper audience measurement. And this is really the key to making this market bigger, and not only bigger, but more importantly, fairer. Because right now, with the lack of trusted data for viewership and also listenership, for that matter, that's making the pie being divided unfairly in some cases. And the initiative, if we see, like we start from the Gulf and up to the ocean, up to Morocco, and the countries that have people meter or a little bit more accurate audience measurement will be Morocco, perhaps to a certain extent Lebanon, and now the UAE. And the next one in line, I hope, will be Saudi Arabia. And as a matter of fact, just yesterday, there was a meeting for the main shareholders of the group of the company that is going to be established in Saudi Arabia to do people meter according to international standards, with full transparency and having a total process that will make the market transparent, that will make it trusted. And all players in the market will be able to participate in that process, whether it being the advertisers, the MBUs, or the broadcasters.
And who are the main shareholders, if we maybe ask, and when will we see the first numbers coming out from this project?
Can I skip that one? No, actually, I would rather not say who are the advertisers now, because this will be done in an official announcement probably sometime before the end of this year. Right now, we have major players, but mainly I could say that they are the main broadcasters in Saudi Arabia and main, let's say, I wouldn't say give them a category, but I would say content delivery, those who are able to deliver content now. So without telling the names of these shareholders, they are like most of the major players in the media industry in Saudi Arabia.
And I think that we're all very keen to know when. I mean, when do you think you'll be able to achieve
Well,
this?
I can tell you that, as I said yesterday, the shareholders were discussing how to form the company, what type of company is going to be, and we anticipate that within the next month to 2 months, the company will be established. And at that point, then things become formal, and we can make the proper announcement to all the players or the owners, and how the whole process will be conducted. Of course, we will have very close cooperation with a similar operation in the UAE, because our markets are similar and some of the players are common.
Now, Nart, Peter, I think you guys should be talking to each other, because Nart's recently launched a television channel, I understand, and it's not an easy thing to get into. I mean, Peter, now as the deputy CEO of a company that runs a media sales house, amongst other things, I mean, what sort of things do you think that Nart should be focusing on? What do you, I mean, and Nart, from your point of view, what's the experience been like from a commercial point of view, launching a television channel so far?
I think it's always challenging launching a channel, and also when you have in mind that the idea of a commercial entity, where you have targets and you have to achieve them over a period of time, and this is really the changing of the situation in the region. I think we tend to, a lot of times, think of things as they are now. And we talk about things, how they're going to change over the next days, or we talk about days, because everything is moving very, very quickly. I think we need to look a little bit further into the future and see that this is a totality of things that are changing around us. This is not just about an increase of the advertising pie, or this is about people meters, but there are lots of changes that are going on around us. For example, when you talk about what's happening in Egypt and the market in Egypt and all these channels that are coming up, and similarly to what is going to happen in Libya or in Tunisia, maybe in the future something will happen also in Syria with all these channels, and the growth of the local market. I know now from the statistics that the advertising is going down in such locations where there's trouble, but these things will change, and these things will have to move on, and I think this is part of a change that's going all around us. And this is not just about, people meters is very important. You have to remember that this is a market that was controlled by mainly two entities, either a government institution that proved failure over many, many years in attracting that kind of viewership, and then you have the independent or semi-independent organizations that are out there and attracting viewers and making sure that there's an alternative for others. I mean, if you look at Saudi Arabia, for example, changing and going into people meters, and this is all part of the change that's going around us. It's not just about an advertising market, and all of these elements and all of these things put together is going to make the market in 4 or 5 years completely different from what we have at the moment. So we have to be positive about it, and if you're launching something from a commercial point of view, you don't just look at what it is at the moment. You look at it, nobody goes into this business for a 3-year break-even or a 5-year profit. You have to look at this long-term, and you have to anticipate what are the changes that are going to happen over the next few years that make you ahead of everybody else. We have 800 something, I don't know, free-to-air channels. Is this going to be the case in 3 or 4 years? Is this what's going to happen? Is there going to be more local channels than there are going to be pan-Arab channels? But these are all the questions that really we have to be asking ourselves.
It's been sort of 10 years of this dynamic, explosive growth. And the thing that's strange to me is that, that's quite a long period. I would call that a long-term period, and yet the dynamic seems to be basically the same. I mean, we've had small incremental value in the advertising market. We've had big numbers of new channels. So I'm pleased to hear you optimistic, but
This is a very, very crucial period of time. I think what we're going through at the moment is something that's going to define the business and it's going to define the industry over the next few years. What is happening now in terms of local channels coming up and local channels taking the local advertising, and this is what we mean about growing the pie. Growing the pie, there's a lot of money that was there in local markets that wasn't tapped into. Although it's not big, when you're considering an investment of 500 or 600 million, maybe that's not much. But for a local channel that invested 10 million in a project and can achieve $3, $4, $5 million a year, that is a big change, and that's what's going to change the structure of the business.
So you think, for example, NBC's launching Massa is a significant demonstration of that localization, that creation of domestic markets?
It must be a reason, because there's an opportunity. Nobody goes into spending money unless there's an opportunity there, and that, I think, applies to everybody. Where those markets are, people see it, they think it's going to grow, and this is where it's going to happen, and that's why people go into these different markets in different areas.
Do you agree, Peter?
Of course. I mean, we all know that, you know, the market is a huge market. It has a lot of youth. It has all the market dynamics that an advertiser is looking for. So why are we still so small? Very clearly, it's because we've been largely, all of us, operating like we're in the grand souk, you know, with hustling and trading for advertising. Whoever would give the lowest or the best price would win the advertising buys. Largely, that was based on the fact that we didn't have good information and good research. So, you know, what was anybody supposed to establish a proper cost per thousand? Now we're moving into the direction of having a proper research, a proper market where we can establish audience measurement, and so therefore a proper cost per thousand must be established for those that are rating and delivering a rating, and that's the responsibility of the broadcasters. The ones that have been benefiting from all of this for the last 10 years have been the advertisers. The advertisers, if they compare what they're paying for in terms of audience delivery versus anywhere else in the world, they're getting the best deal on the planet. And I think that's a reason why it's been slow to change, because why do you want to pay more when you don't have to? I wouldn't as an advertiser. But now the industry needs to come together and pay a fair price for what is actually being delivered if it can be properly measured, and it will be. So that's the way that's going. In terms of developing the local markets, that's absolutely crucial. I mean, we talk about the MENA region as 350 million people with lots of wonderful demographics, but, you know, and that's almost the size of the U.S. But the U.S. is one large market that operates under one set of rules. Here we're dealing with 26 or 28 countries which all have different rules and regulations. It's much like Europe. We don't hear very much about pan-European advertising, only peripherally. So pan-Arab advertising is still going to be a challenge going forward. But certainly the larger markets that make up the majority of this viewing, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the Gulf, and even to a degree, the Levant and even the Maghreb, are all regions that should be covered locally in addition to on a pan-Arab basis. But
how's that likely to affect Rotana, do you think? I mean, it's a pan-regional brand.
Well, yes, of course. We have pan-regional channels, but, you know, we were the pioneers of launching local channels also. Rotana Masriya and Kalajia, Rotana Kalajia, these were channels that were launched, several years ago. Because we realized that we should be developing the local advertising market and the local markets in addition to pan-regional. It's just, while these are a good idea and while the execution is there, the ability to develop the local markets from an advertising point of view has been very challenging for the reasons I just described. So we have a vested interest to make sure that trend continues to get proper research and then to establish across the board a proper price per thousands of viewers that's a fair price for both advertisers and for broadcasters. So that's what we're aiming for, not just to get the research, but to also establish a fair price.
But can I just add, Nick, I mean, the point as well that we always get asked this question, the growth of local channels is the death of the pan-Arab channel. And even your question was sort of hinting, is that what affects networks or pan-Arab networks? I don't think we should look at it that way. We do not look at it that way. I think what it means is that there's going to be more quality, and the success of the market and the success of this industry is not calculated by the kilogram. It's calculated by the quality. And if we have 1,000-something channels at the moment, and the growth of the local channels means that we have more local channels but less pan-Arab channels, that's not a bad thing. That's just a natural way of the system fixing itself, because the pan-Arab channels